youngster. Bukayo Saka. Terry, I think you mentioned it earlier that you wanted us to talk about him. When are we going to start calling this guy world class? He did it in the Euro, he did it in the Euros, he did it in the World Cup, he's doing it in the Premier League, he's doing it in the Champions League. He has 20 goals and like 17 assists this calendar year. So he has the GA to match some of the best wingers in the world. After 5 Champions League games, he's top of the chart for GA in the Champions League. What more do you just need him to lift the trophies before you start putting that world-class tag on him? Because at this point, there's nothing else he can do besides lifting those major trophies.
No, but when it really matters, that's when you call players world-class. You can't just do it when it's the beginning of the race. You can't do it now. It's too premature.
You want to know something?
Look at it last season. What did he do in the last 7 games?
Bro, let me paint this picture for you. He was 16 years old when he first broke into 16 or 17. How old was he when he first broke in? He was very young, and then he was one of our best players back then. Then he did in the Europa League.
It's about when it really matters.
Bro, when it really mattered in the Europa League, he was one of the only people who stood up out of that.
Let's be honest here. Let's be honest.
When it really mattered last year, he was one of the guys who always showed up. You can't depend on you. It's at the end of the day, it's a team. But he
not in the last 8 games, though.
Guys, let me just jump in for a second. Try to let each other finish your points before people jump in, just because it gets hard for the viewers to follow. What's the rebuttal to what Igal's saying here? He said, "Why are we going to call him world class?" What are we saying to that?
I get what Igal's saying. I do get it, but he ain't there yet. He ain't. You know, when you look at last season, like Sauls was saying, the last 8 games, he was also one of the players that went missing in the last 8 games when it really mattered, when it could be the difference between Arsenal winning the league and not winning the league. Now, I'm not sitting here and blaming Bukayo Saka because obviously he had a great season last season, and he weren't the only one who went missing in them last 8 games. In the Champions League, I agree. He's top of the charts at the moment. He's doing really, really well. When it's going to matter is when we reach the knockout stages like we are now. Like, is he going to show up in the knockout games against the better sides? Let's not forget, we've been, in a group with Sevilla, Lens, and, PSV, a group that Arsenal were expected to get out of when that draw was made. So
it's not my
fault. It's like, can he do it against, I don't know, a Real Madrid over 2 legs, for example? That's where it becomes a question of, is Bukayo Saka world class or not?
In my opinion. I kind of disagree in the sense of I look at him. I believe he's performing at a world class level, but I feel like the title world class is given out way too easy today. For me, being world class means you're performing over a set period of time at a top level. So we can sit here and say his performances over the last 18 months have been world class, but I feel like he needs a longer body of work. I don't agree with the argument about he didn't do it in the final end, so therefore he's not world class. Or if he wins the league, he becomes world class, because I feel like that's also too simplistic, because it also depends on his contributions in regards to that league title and how he performs all the way up until that point. But for me, I feel like world class needs to be given when you have a serious body of work and you've performed at that highest level for a significant period of time. And I feel like Saka is performing very well, and if he continues in his trajectory, he'll get there.
No, but winning definitely matters, because if you can't win, then you've not done it when it matters. The pressure of winning. Look at us last season. We bottled it. Why? Because we didn't have the mentality to get it over the line. We were 8 points clear of Man City. There's a different mentality when it really matters. Look at Spurs. They got to the final, couldn't hack it then. There's a lot of.
Did you ever consider Harry Kane world class? Because he never.
No, because he hasn't done it when it really matters. I've always said this. For me, the aspect of winning isn't the only thing, but it's what it means to win something, to get your team over the line in that final, in those cutting-edge moments, is what a world-class player is. Not when you're playing against a Lens. Who gives a shit?
Let me say this.
You're in the better team.
When every coach in the world, in the Euros, in the World Cup, in the Champions League, in the Premier League, is game planning for him as the best player on Arsenal. And when it comes to, when they talk about the best wingers in the world, they put him in the same bracket as the best wingers in the world. That's when I start to say, you know what? We have to start talking about him as a world-class player. Because I know he has a long way to go to get to Mo Salah's level. But at this moment in time, outside of Mo Salah, when you talk about right wingers, Bukayo Saka is right there. You cannot tell me that's not.
I want to see it when
to use your Harry Kane.
Let me just jump in a second here. I get this, but this all comes down to we're arguing more now about the definition of world class as opposed to how good Bukayo Saka is. Some people say you've got to be top 3 in the world. I've always found that weird. What if you have 5 players that are all as good as each other? What, 2 of them not world class because they're not inside the top 3? Some people, again, and I agree that trophies have to be part of that conversation because trophies are huge in their key. And I agree, I think with what Nathan, I think this kid, I think he is world class. I just don't think he maybe has proven it to everybody yet. He's performing at a world class level. I think he will deliver in his career in title races. He didn't last year at 21 years of age, but a lot of 21-year-olds haven't done that either. I look at his numbers this year, and this is why I know he's a top-class player. His numbers have got better year in, year out. This season, I don't even think he's been at his best, but still is 6th in Europe at the top 5 leagues for goals and assists. He's joint with Bellingham, who's on 19, and Mbappe, who's on 19. Interestingly, and I didn't realize he'd scored so many this year across all comps, including the Europa League. Ollie Watkins is actually on 19 this year. But that's a slight anomaly because Watkins hasn't been there in prior years. He may not ever be there again. But the rest of the names on there, Mbappe, Haaland, who we all know is world class, right? 23 goal contributions. The only person who's scored and assisted exponentially more goals than Bukayo Saka this year is Harry Kane, who's on 29 GA for this season, who's absolutely killing it for Bayern Munich. And Saka's doing that when he hasn't even been at his best. The Ollie Watkins, the Jude Bellinghams of this world, etc., they are being raved about as, wow, look how good they are. And this man is still able to deliver even when he isn't good. And I think that's a sign of, somebody said it earlier, he's inevitable. And that's the thing with Saka. He is there. He could be having a stinker and he can win you a game. And in my personal opinion, only players who have greatness in their boots can do that. And I think he's at a world-class level. The trophies will give him his greatness. He has to win trophies to create greatness, in my personal opinion. But this is a special kid who for 2 or 3 years now, I'm gutted he's an Arsenal player. The only saving grace is that he plays for my country, so I get to support him about 10 times a year. But I think he's absolutely sensational in my personal opinion. I really do.
What makes it even better for him, this is one of the best spines since the Invincible that we've had. One of the best spines this Arsenal team has ever had. You have William Saliba, one of the best center halves we've had in a long time. You have Declan Rice, one of the best defensive midfielders we've had in a long time. You have Bukayo Saka, who's producing like one of the best players we've had in a long time. Today he surpassed Cesc Fabregas in Premier League goals on Arsenal's list as one of just to go to show you how many goals he's added to his game and how much we rated Cesc Fabregas at the time. So that's just another thing he's added to his list. And then the only person who people even criticize or question is Raya, who at this moment in time, in 14 games where he's played, has 7 clean sheets. Just goes to show you that the whole team around him is amazing. And if this team doesn't deliver, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, this team is so good. The sky's the limit for us. This could be the beginning of a dynasty, or this could be a team that eventually doesn't make it, and a bunch of players end up leaving. Either way, it's gonna be on how far Bukayo Saka can take us. And I think he's the talisman for this team, not Martin Odegaard, not anybody else. But guess what? Saliba is probably the best player on this team, and he didn't even get spoken about today.
That's a U-turn on the conversation. We've got Beckley here with us. Beckley, what's your take on the Saka conversation?
I think he's playing at a world-class level right now, and his performances over the last 18 months have been world-class. But for me, you've got Rodrigo and you've got Salah, the 2 wingers that are better than him. And in my opinion, you've got Rodrigo's got a big moment in the Champions League against Man City. Those 2 goals sent him to a Champions League final. Salah's won trophies and performed at the highest level in big moments. Saka's not done that yet, so I can't say he's world-class right now. But I think he will become world-class if Arsenal can start delivering those trophies and those league titles.
Brother, what about the Euros and the World Cup? Are those not big moments?
He was unreal in the Euros. He was England's best player. But I think that for Arsenal, he needs to be the one to get us over that line for him to be considered world-class.
So he needs to win trophies.
Not just win trophies, because Mustafi won the World Cup and he didn't play well, but I mean, like, performing the clutch moments in the big games when it matters. Take us over that line.
I think that's a fair standard. I think that's a fair standard to say, be pivotal to a team winning trophies. Because if you think about, I was just looking here at the list here of like your top goal scorers of all time, and I'm looking at Henry, I'm looking at Ian Wright, Van Persie. Dennis Bergkamp's name is on there. Alan Smith's name is on there. Paul Merson, Perez. So many of these guys have helped you win major trophies. I wouldn't say they're all world class, but just being legends at your clubs, it isn't just being a good player or someone the fans love. You've got to have delivered. I'm not too sure how many trophies Van Persie won. I think maybe only the FA Cup in 2005. I think he was on the bench in that game. But yeah, I mean, there's players that have won a lot. I didn't realize this, that Theo Walcott is a legend. I didn't realize this, that Theo Walcott is the 5th highest goal scorer in Arsenal's history.
Yeah,
he is. 100 goals for Arsenal.
He's been with us for a long time.
108. No, again, I've never gone and checked your records because it's just been pointless for me.
Giroud has 100, I think, also.
Drew 105, Alan Smith 102. It's actually crazy. The majority of the people in your top 20 are all like Premier League era players. It just, it's crazy. And I only say that because like my club, a lot of our players are from like the 60s, 70s, 80s. It's just interesting looking at different clubs.
Imagine if this team delivers for Arsenal a Premier League or a Champions League and is the first person to bring silverware to the Emirates. Some of these guys who are actually in this team could be going down as Arsenal legends.
Well, I think you're doing it for the first time in 20 years. I mean, if these players deliver a Champions League, that puts them in again. And I can't. This is something I never get. I don't think any rival or neutral should speak on who should. You can have an opinion on who should or shouldn't be, but it's the fans of a club who decide essentially who their legends are. But if, for instance, Saka is a talisman in leading you to win a Premier League and a Champions League, because he's also from your academy, he's one of you lot. This guy could end up going down as one of your greatest ever players, if not the greatest ever. Not that he's better than Henry, but legendary status isn't just depicted by how good you are as a footballer. It's the whole package and what you deliver. So, look, there's loads that could be done there. I want to go to super chats and run them by you all as well. This here.